Welcome to episode 8 of the Smeg cast. I am John Cassidy, filling the host shoes tonight. On the show with me, I have Mark Selly.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good night.
Tim Shaw.
Good evening.
Chris Toone.
Hello.
Orie Walsh.
Hi.
And James Taylor.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Oh well, bye then.
All right, bye.
On this week's episode, we are going through the Red Dwarf episode guide backwards. And tonight we are going to be talking Krysis, where Kryton has a midlife crisis and changes his body cover from mech grey to fiery red. The posse try and show him how much he's achieved in life by taking to visit a mechanoid from his old fleet. Now, guys, have you all been watching the episode?
Yes.
Yes.
I watched it very recently.
No comment.
Oh, yeah, you will have actually, won't you? Okay. Now, also talking about the plot, the midlife crisis idea. Did it identify with anyone, or is it something you wanted to were happy to see in an episode of Red Dwarf?
Don't know. It's not something we really expect a mechanoid having a midlife crisis, but I mean that spin is kind of Kryton's like evolution. How he didn't feel like these human emotions or kind of like things before, and now he's like adapting things like midlife crisis from all of his emotions and stuff like that. So yeah.
I'll mention this a bit later on, but my uncle did something very similar to Kryton when he had his midlife crisis.
Wait, he started wearing a metal red suit?
Sort of.
Carbon fiber.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Carbon fiber.
It's much lighter.
Okay, Tim, is there anything, I know from my perspective, it was an episode that I wasn't expecting a lot from when I heard the synopsis, but I actually grew to love as I went on. What was your take before you watched the episode originally?
I was actually very excited about it. I love the idea because it basically said Kryton has a midlife crisis. I thought, what a great idea that is. And then when I got into it, I loved it from start to finish on first viewing. And one thing I noticed when I first saw it is I was thinking to myself, well, Doug Naylor is very much an observant writer. And he observes, the cast and I think gets a lot of ideas from, how they are in real life. Great example was back in the mid-90s when Craig Charles was in prison for a short time. Doug used to go and visit him, and apparently he was taking notes at the same time. And then a couple of years later, they filmed Series 8, and they're in prison. So and I think it sounds like it's almost Doug writing this for Robert Llewellyn. Basically saying that you're probably at this time in your life now where the years are catching up with you. You're probably having a bit of a late midlife crisis, and this is kind of about you, and probably about all of the cast getting older. I feel, and maybe there's a little bit of himself in there as well.
Absolutely. Now, Orie, another sort of Robert main episode. Are you happy to see Kryton taking centre stage more within episodes, or is it something that you would maybe disagree with?
No, I'm absolutely happy with it. I think Kryton as a character gets a bit like we were saying with Kat in the last Backwards episode. He gets sort of pushed to the side by Lister and Rimmer a bit. And it's quite nice to have something focusing on him.
Okay. Now, within this episode, we did see another mechanoid in the form of Butler, played by Dominic Coleman, who I've got to say, the name, I did not recognise the name at first, but when you look at a lot of these acting credits, you begin to sort of realise, oh yeah, he was in that. He's one of those character actors that you don't instantly know, but he's when you look at he's been in things like Peaky Blinders, Miranda. He's also been in Drunk History, and where he played Adolf Hitler. He's also been in Death in Paradise as well. So I mean, what did you think about his performance as the sort of pretentious Butler?
When you mentioned the name Dominic Coleman, it rings a bell, but I didn't know where he came from. until when I was actually seeing him like before acting, and I was like, oh yeah, I recognise him now, and he was brilliant in it, and he was like one of the funniest characters he was doing. So from start to finish, the episode was absolutely brilliant with Crichton and the actual guy itself, Dominic. Butler was a really good character.
Absolutely. Now, how many of us, though, have been in that situation where, we've grown up from people with school, that sort of thing, where, you've got them on Facebook and you think, you know what? I'm doing better than you, or, you get annoyed when you realise, oh, wait, you're actually doing better than me. Did that sort of ring true to you, James, at all?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, actually. Yeah, it's when you do see people on Facebook and you make the assumption. So it kind of worked in the episode as well. It kind of like Crichton made the assumption that this guy is going to be below him, and then when he gets there, he's not, and he's kind of done something. So yeah, it was an interesting development in the plot.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, Mark, obviously for the overall episode structure as well, is there anything that you like particularly, Mark, or is there any sort of plot holes that you would like to pick?
Nobody wants for plot holes, but I'm not too sure I noticed any, to be honest. I mean, if you look closely, there's nothing too major, but I think the sequence in Starbug. It was. I found the episode funny. It was full of old classic japes, which I'd say it's more of a Holly stunt, to be honest, because they're kind of the jokes that Holly would come out with, like season 1 and 2-ish. So yeah.
And as I say, going into this episode, I wasn't expecting a lot from it myself, but certainly there was a lot of sort of the visual gag of Crichton's suit, the Ferrari red suit. What did you think of that? Do you think it was maybe too on the nose, or or was that sort of relatable with people that you've seen?
Well, it would have been a lot better if they hadn't given it away in trailers. So I already knew he was going to have a red suit, and also when I saw merchandise that was being sold for while the series was on, I saw these key rings, one with a sort of black Crichton body and one with the red one. So again, and then it also in the plot synopsis it even says that he changes to Ferrari red. If we didn't know anything like that at all, that the first bit when he comes in would have been a massive surprise. And if you listen to the way the audience reacts to it, you can tell it is such a surprise. I wish I had that same experience watching it at home, but because I knew what was going to happen and had seen pictures of it and everything else, that surprise was kind of spoiled. But the suit itself was great. Even the universe himself told me that it sucked. It was a very funny moment, and one of my favourite moments of that, of course, is when he says "check this" and spins round. It's just, it is basically a person going through a midlife crisis, trying to be young again, and it's just so embarrassingly awful. And that whole scene just plays that out brilliantly.
Just gonna say, my uncle went through his midlife crisis, went out and bought a Porsche, and it led to my mum calling it a mana Porsche instead of a midlife crisis.
Right, now, what did you guys think about that? What kind of shocked me is the episode did take a bit of a turn from the unexpected when they went to meet the universe. What did you guys think of that? The universe, of course, was voiced by Daniel Barker. He's done things like additional voices for the Minions film, TV series called Camping, and The Intern as well. But what did you think about, obviously, the turn of the episode, going to see the universe? We'll start off with you, Tim.
I didn't like it at first. I thought the whole scene was rushed and unnecessary, and just was a little bit too much like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. But on repeated watches, grew on me, and then obviously because of the obvious payoff at the end, I started to appreciate it a lot more than I first did, even if it does feel very sort of tacked on and rushed. I like it now as part of the episode, and I'll explain a bit more later when we go to ratings, but this particular scene dragged the rating down a little bit for me. how I rated the episode overall in the series. But now I've got used to it, and now I don't mind it anymore. That rating has changed, and I'll explain a little bit more when we get to that bit.
Sure. James, what did you think about the inclusion of the universe in the episode?
I initially, I'm with Tim. I didn't really like it. The fact that it kind of blinked at you is like, surely someone else has noticed this happening if it's talking to you. But I have got to like it. The Morgan Freeman voice works for me on so many levels. The fact that it's kind of that kind of God thing going on, I find that quite amusing. Yeah. Although watching it, I can't help but think back to the Futurama episode where Bender talks to the universe.
Yeah, I know personally for me, it seemed like something that was done before, whether it be Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Yes. It was certainly something that I just felt had been done numerous times, which put a bit of a spoiler on it for me.
Yeah, it's something that's been, as you say, Hitchhikers have done it, Futurama's done it. They did it. It kind of borrowed a lot from other things. It was okay. I think, as Tim says, it did feel a bit rushed in the ending.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that irks me as well. Chris, what did you think about the ending of the show?
Well, as what Tim and James has said, with the universe bit, the first time when it was first broadcast, I thought, what the dickens am I? I didn't really like it as well.
Yeah.
But when you've watched it about 5 to 10 times, which I already have, it's like a very funny sketch in a way, because as what James has said, it was like a parody version of Morgan Freeman, which is like an impressionist of Daniel Barker, and it was I really don't know how he did it. And then right at the end, it was the famous lines of what Crichton said. You had him on speed dial and all that. So funny as anything. And then it seemed a bit. I think it was like with Series 11, it seemed a bit rushed, but that particular episode, it was a bit rushed at the time. I think probably because when it was filmed at Palmer Studios, they probably didn't. They might not have had much time and all that kind of thing, because it might be late at night when they filmed it. So,
was this one of the episodes that you went to watch at all, or?
No, the one we watched, me and Tim, is Series 12, which you can't discuss at the moment until it's been broadcasted.
It's coming up.
Of course.
It's definitely coming up, but we won't tell you.
Absolutely. No spoilers.
I will say,
no spoilers here.
I wish I was in the audience for that particular episode, or at least an episode of Series 11. There's quite a few in there, would have watching, but never mind.
Orie, what did you think, Orie?
Of which part? Which bit? The universe?
Basically, the universe, life, and number 42. What did you think about? What did you think about the sort of ending the universe itself? Do you think it was maybe a bit overcooked, or do you think it was worth it for the payoff?
Well, I thought it was good. I mean, like everyone else has said, the Morgan Freeman style voice was great, and the sort of universe blinking as it talked to you did have a bit of a Futurama vibe to it.
Yeah.
But and like you said, it has been done a lot, but I feel like that works for the story, because the sort of character Butler has been done a lot, but this time it's been done on purpose.
Yeah.
The sort of I can do everything and I can do everything better than you type of character.
Oh, Mark.
But I feel like it was done on purpose this time.
Now, Mark, what did you think about? Obviously, we'll talk about the end of the episode, but just while it's on what Orie said, what did you think about the sort of opposites between Crichton and Butler? Did it work well? Could it have been done better, or what were the particular points that made it for you?
I don't know, you see. I basically thought they were just playing on the thing, because obviously we've seen enough Mechanoid, we've seen Abe, and I thought, to be honest, they were just reusing that kind of idea again. So I mean, don't get me wrong, it was good, but it seems like they've already like used it before with obviously Abel. So.
Yeah, I know that from my perspective, it got better as it went on. The payoff was good, but what irks me a little bit was like that God was a Morgan Freeman voice, only because I do know of better Morgan Freeman impersonators. So, like Josh Robert Thompson is an example, who just do it much better. So, from my pedantic point of view, I picked holes on his impersonation as much as I did like the actual scene as well. From that. But as I say, it's one of those episodes where it just ended on that one line, and that sort of brought it back together for me. Right, so
Sorry, can I just say one
now...
thing, John?
Yeah.
Sorry, quickly before we go on. That wasn't the only episode that Daniel Barker did voices on.
Sure.
So yeah, he did other voices in various episodes as well. That was just one of them, and he wasn't God; he was the universe. In fact, Crichton pointed out that no one knows whether God exists in that little speech to the universe.
Yeah. See, in all fairness, it's just because Morgan Freeman's played God twice. That's what's confusing.
Evan Almighty and
I think some people might think that they was trying to imply that the universe was God, but I don't think that they were trying to imply that. It's just because it's such a grand, commanding, epic voice. It fits the universe and God, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's all one and the same in that regard. But we're not getting a debate here tonight, obviously.
Oh,
right,
guys,
yeah.
I was just saying, no. Let's not get into theological and cosmological debates yet.
No, absolutely. Right, okay. So now let's move on to the ratings. Now, this, as we know, is already a relatively contentious episode amongst the posse tonight. First of all, in terms of ratings, can we start with you, Orie? What would you give the rating for this episode?
Well, originally I was going to give it quite a low rating because as much as I like the episode and as much as I know it's on purpose, Butler is a type of character called a Mary Sue, which is really, really annoying. But as I was doing notes for this episode, I kind of realised, what everyone else has been saying, it works really well with Crichton having flaws and insecurities and all that sort of thing. So I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10.
All right, then. So it's actually a better score than I thought you'd give it, that's for sure.
Chris, what did you think I was going to give it?
I thought you'd give it like a 5.5 or a 6.
Yeah, I was thinking something like that, but I kind of talked myself out of that in my notes.
Mm-hmm. Chris, what did you think of the episode? What kind of rating would you give it?
Well, the episode, to start off with, obviously you've got to give it a chance. The very first time when I watched it, it was funny as it seemed, but once I understand what was going on and all that 3 or 4 times after, it was more improvement. So I'm going to say about an 8, I think, for that one. 8 out of 10.
Right, so it sounds like you enjoyed the episode quite a lot then.
Yeah, very funny, yeah.
Absolutely. Now, Mark, overall, what would you say about the episode? How would you sum it up, and what kind of rating would you give it?
Obviously, I mean, I've said before, I mean, I like it, but obviously I said about with the Abel thing, it's kind of like a reused kind of idea, but at the same point, they had good japes in it. I mean, like japes used to kind of like find Holly on the first and second series. But yeah, I mean, I really liked it. But yeah, probably about 7 or 8-ish. So I think I'll stick with 7, to be honest.
Sure, 7. So 7. Right, 7. Okay. So James, again, what did you think of the episode overall, and what would your rating be?
Overall, I enjoyed it. It kind of went back to things like The Last Day, talking about Silicon Heaven, Crichton improving himself and so on. But at the end of it, there was a few things in there I didn't like. I hated his speech to the universe about, oh, you've created love and all this kind of stuff. It just did my head in. I'm going to give it a 6.
All right. Oh dear, oh dear. I know personally, from my perspective, I would say 6.5 because it seems like it's been done before numerous times, and because of my pedantic nature. Nothing against Daniel Barker, but I have heard the Morgan Freeman voice done better. That's just my pedantic nature. It's a decent episode. It's a decent romp. It's what I would call a rainy day episode. But it's not something that you would necessarily sit down to watch personally. So 6.5 is what I would say about that. Tim, I think you've got a lot to say about this episode. What would you say about the episode overall and the rating?
Well, I'm going to go completely off on one here. It was my second favourite episode of the series. My first being Give and Take. Then I watched Krysis. Well, I watched a couple of episodes of Series 11 on the coach on the way up to Dimension Jump very recently. Sure. And suddenly I just totally changed my mind in an instant. Krysis became my new favourite episode of Series 11. I love Butler. He is we've now become one of my all-time favourite guest characters. I love all the jokes, all the quotes. It's a really solid episode in Series 11. It's got... I love the exploration of Creighton's character. I love the sort of interaction between him and Butler and the whole jealousy aspect. And then obviously right at the end, the stunning effects when they speak to the universe, and then the big payoff, probably the best ending that Series 11 has. And for that reason, it just puts the episode as the best one of Series 11. And I have to give it a 10 out of 10.
Fantastic stuff. I will say, kudos to Dominic Coleman though. There's him and then Kevin Eldon in a later episode of season 11, the sort of jobbing actors that vaguely, but you don't really know, but they really gave a lot to those episodes, and I think that Dominic Coleman was the sort of perfect fit for Butler in this instance. What do you think? Do you agree with that, or do you think it would have been played better by someone else?
No, I totally agree. I mean, Dominic Coleman, as you say, one of those guys, when you say who, and then you see his face and go, oh yeah, I've seen him in various things. I've seen him, the first thing I saw him in was Miranda as the shop customer. And I didn't really, I thought, he's just one of those bit part actors who's in this comedy and he's mildly amusing, there we go. But in Krysis, he just made that character his own. And you're never going to, whether you liked him or not, you're never going to forget that character. He will always stick in your mind. And in my opinion, from what I've seen Dominic Coleman do, is one of his stronger sort of bit part roles that he's done. So that's it's up there with the most memorable guest characters of Red Dwarf.
Fantastic. So it's a bit of a mixed bag of an episode tonight. Not everybody's favourite, but not necessarily the worst episode ever made. Not made.
We got a lower total than last week. We've got a total of 6.7 for this week. So 6.7 for Krysis.
Yeah, 6.7 this week though. It's not. I don't think it's necessarily the worst episode in season 11. Certainly, there may be more contentious episodes as we go further down the list. But do you reckon that's maybe what you guys would feel is the more contentious episode of the season then, or do you think that there were spoiler alert? But do you think that there were more contentious episodes? In season 11.
I think there were more problems with the endings rather than the episodes themselves.
Yeah.
I think Krysis was the only episode in Series 11 that actually had a satisfying ending.
Well, that's it. It's one of those episodes where it is literally all about the ending in that regard.
It's one heck of a payoff, really. And as been mentioned previously on previous podcasts and by many other people, if Kind of Worms wasn't the last episode of the series, and Krysis would have been excellent as the last episode, because that payoff would have ended the whole series, on a high.
I would like to go back to what you were saying, Tim, earlier on about the merchandising. Not just that, but I think the merchandising coming out as early as it did, that sort of gave away too much of the series. I was trying personally myself to keep a low profile when reading about it, because I wanted to experience those episodes as new, but when I looked on to see what sort of merchandise there was, it really did sort of give the game away a wee bit.
It's fine. I just blame myself, and I shouldn't have looked at the key rings. That's it.
Oh, that's true. That is true.
Just don't look at the key rings. You'll be all right. Yeah.
I would say that if anyone wants to get merchandise after when it comes to season 12, wait until after you've watched the episodes at least, just in case, just in case there's any major spoilers. Okay, now that's all for this week's podcast. But if you have any ideas or views for the podcast, please feel free to contact us on our Facebook page at RD or email in as well. I'd like to thank all the Smegheads for listening, and from all of us here, it's a good night.
Good night.
Morning.
Good night.
Hi.
Woo! Rock and roll.
Hello, James.
But I think the Ma sequence in Starbug.
Ma!
Mark, it's Ma. It's Ma.
It's
It's in the throat.
Ah!
Ma.
Here's another
Ma.
one for innuendo bingo.
Yeah.
Ma.
Another one striked off the list.
Hello, James.
Goodbye.
Oh, I thought, we were doing,
Hello!
I thought we were doing it backwards. I thought, you started with a goodbye. We'll start with hello.
Are we insane?
Welcome to the show.
Oh, no. Guys,
ETG fish.
What missed?
Welcome to the show.
Don't we
That's a
should
joke,
have
is it?
no, do you know? That's a good point. The joke we should have done, right? Rather than saying goodbye, it should have been from all of us guys. Ma!
Well, let's do it then. Let's do it. We'll tack it on the end.
Got to get it from the
We'll
throat.
get the editor to edit it in.
Oh God.
Yes. Right, so Mark, if you're listening, we're all going to do like a ma.
Edit this sound in.
Back in there.
And this is
Yeah.
this is the real ending now. Okay, the other one was the fake ending.
Yeah.
Right, so start from the top, and basically from all of us here, then we'll just go the ma.
Yeah.
And then,
So
right,
once of the rain sheep. Okay, cool.
yeah, and then Tim can sort of cut in and say, no, you've got to get it from the back of the throat, kind of
Do,
thing.
Yeah,
do you want me
sounds
to
good.
attempt to actually say the line?
Ma.
I tried to write it
Yeah,
down.
do it.
If you can, yeah, if you can.
This is what I've got. You can tell me. It's ak ma ga ka
Ma.
Ah.
ma
Ah.
Ah.
Okay.
Ah. Okay, and that's all for this week's podcast. If you have any ideas or views for the podcast, please feel free to contact us on our Facebook page or email us. And I'd like to thank all our Smegheads for listening. And from all of us here,
No, it's in the throat. No, ma. No, ma. Ma. Ma.
the back of the throat, guys.
I really hope we don't get pulled into an insane asylum after this.
Hello.
I was expecting us to be a bit more synced up than that.
I think it's going to be like a reenactment of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
To be fair,
One Flew Over the Dwarf's Nest.
very good stories. Very good story.
Excuse me while I go and lift up the sink and throw it out the window. My
Well,
name.
I mean, we know who dies at the end. It's going to be Mark.
Yeah.
Oh.
Anyone got
Sorry, you've been chosen.
What was the name of what was the name of Brad Dourif's character? Was it Billy? Wasn't it? Was it Billy?
Yeah, Billy.
Yeah, Mark can play Billy. There you go.
Oh, I was thinking he was going to play Jack Nicholson's character.
Oh, just be Jack Nicholson.
I'm not dying.
I think I'd be Danny DeVito.
You tried.
You've been chosen. You have to die.
I can assure you, I'm not done without a bite.
Mark.
Well, okay, you can be Nurse Ratchet then.
You can't.
You would rather die.
You can't whack death over the head.
Sorry. I find
Seizing
out.
me or rip his nipples off.
If you see death, you've got to kick him in the balls and run. Not today, mate.
Yeah, that's never happened before.
Yes.